Hey guys, Atlantean Vampire here. I'm still, again, working on that video with the $100 donation. Um, that's a long video. Oh, dear God, it's a long video. I have such workload ahead of me and hopefully future videos that will help people. I had a bunch of people that were just telling me, hey, Alex, you should cover the pyramid. The Black Pyramid, and I'm like, oh my God, no, not this. So I was aware of this pyramid for a very long time, for many, many years, before anyone else was talking about it, and I just did not want to ever, back in the old days when I first started YouTube, never wanted to make a video on it. You know, as soon as I remembered my Atlantean origins, I had no interest. And I was like, I made an oath that I just want to donate something before I make a video. And so I can't actually afford to post this video. So oath breaking, haha. But I'm never gonna cover the Black Pyramid. There's a couple. We have some on Venus, Mars, obviously the one in Alaska, a few other places, and I'm not going to say either way, right? For my own reasons, and, one on Saturn, one, I'm trying to remember, I think there's one on Europa, and I just want to make this video so people can just leave me alone about the subject. Imagine being separated from your home for 66 million years, knowing that your entire culture, civilization is dead, knowing that your people created such works of art that would make Vincent van Gogh and Picasso look like a feminist rubbing period blood and feces on a canvas. It just, we built architecture, buildings that made the Notre Dame look like a mud hut in West Africa. We made songs that would make Richard Wagner's Lundgren look like a generic Taylor Swift song. And as much as I try to get into this whole role play mindset of being a human being, and it isn't tiring exactly, but it's hard for me when there are actual remnants of Atlantis or Atlantean technology in the modern day that's been left behind. And I'll say this, I'm not going to say what those pyramids do. I'll say that it's much more simple than any of you could really comprehend, but to you it would be mind-bending, world-breaking. Just imagine, put yourself in my shoes. You incarnate in body after body. You have an eternal and persistent will as an astral vampire, and you're watching as your entire civilization, your family, your friends, they're all dead. They've been atomized. They're dust. They're recycled atoms in the ocean, in the coral reefs, and you can never go home. You go forward and forward in time, and you do what seems familiar politically, spiritually, whatever it is, and you try. The more and more you remember your first incarnation, you just feel sad. There's a type of sickness that astral vampires suffer from that I'd like to avoid. I don't have a word for it. Maybe rampancy, maybe vampiric, not dementia, but, insanity maybe, where, it's not a problem being the same ego in millions of different bodies moving forward. That's not the problem. The problem, though, is the longer you exist, the more you look on your past, right? And if you're, depending on how substantial and glorious your past is, and then having the rest of history to compare to it, it'll make you want to hang yourself from a ceiling fan, if I'm being honest, right? Imagine if you were being a part of a great military force, right? And then seeing monkeys going around and playing with your dead comrades' helmets and guns, and they're all rusted. You can't even visit their graves because you're not sure who's buried where, and they're turning your military base into a mural. They take your military tank and they've carved it out and turned it into a little house to live in, and they live in the shadow of titans, and you're there with them, you preside with them, and you watch, and when you see those artifacts, you're reminded that you're never going to go home. You're reminded that it's over, that you are a relic. You're reminded that, compare those artifacts to the rest of humanity, and you realize that you've lost a lot of, you just don't really care about them. It's like watching a monkey wear a man's clothing. If I have to bury that deep down and go into the mindset of okay, I'm a defender of the European people and we stand against this type of evil, and I call a certain group of people monkeys, right? But then my vampiric self, which I call the old man, when the old man, sees something that wakes him up, like someone who's 100 years old, and they're tired constantly, and then they see something that reminds them of their prime, and then they're like, oh fuck, they're all monkeys, they're all filthy abomination. Anyways, it's to say that there's a deep sense of sorrow. Try to live in the present. I think every vampire should try to live in the present, because if you see things from imagine if you're a man from the Victorian era and you went through the ritual to become a vampire and you incarnate in all these different lives. Your source of joy that you derive is to embody and partake in the character of these different individuals in these different eras. But you might just walk into, it might be 100 years later, maybe 1,000 years later, who knows, and you walk into an antique shop that sells Victorian items, and what was once something that you'd see inside your house, that you'd see your neighbor wearing, that you would parts of a car that you've seen fully active, like one of the original Fords. That I don't think cars exist in the Victorian era. Rather, you see a wagon wheel and you remember what the whole carriage looked like. And it hurts more so not just to see those items, but to see how aged they are, and your conscience is not aged. It's the same. It's a snapshot as the day that those things were first made. And you see that wagon wheel and there's fragments missing, right? And you just look at what little is left of your time, and you're reminded that you're never going to go home. You're reminded that you're never going to go back to the Victorian era. No one's ever going to wear that kind of clothing again. No one's ever going to have those sensibilities, whether they're good or bad. You're going to see all these steam engines and things like that, these pocket watches. And you might want to buy the pocket watch as a memento, but you will lose yourself in a stream of grief and sorrow that you will not be able to handle. None of us can, which is why you walk out of that antique shop, you walk away, and you partake in the modern character. You can't look at that Victorian shop, or else you'll lose yourself. You'll break down crying. You will be overcome with despair, and then you will be overcome with misanthropy. You'll want to hate the world. You'll want everyone to die. You'll lose interest in everyone, and it will be impossible to engage with the human experience of this era And for an Atlantean, that is about the same for me, but times beyond a proportion that can be measured. So when I see things that are genuine remnants of Atlantis, I just can't help but think of my family. I think of my mother, and in this life, that gave birth to this body, and all our relationship struggles and our good memories together. And then I'm like, okay, is she my mother? Because I was born from a vagina, a long time ago, to a woman that's currently in the ground. Was she also not my mother? And then you keep going and you realize that you're just repeatedly, birthed from many women. And my own mother in this life, over the course of the next few thousand years, will just be a distant memory. And I'll be living in the moment, trying to enjoy myself, feeding and going about my business, and that you could say is a distraction. I wouldn't fully say that's the case, but you can find peace with eternity. But I've seen other vampire that have kind of reached the end of the road where they can't take it anymore, where they've seen, something so potent from their past that it makes them go over the edge, and they end themselves. It's not even just a physical unaliving. They just stop feeding altogether. And for the most part, when an astral vampire decides not to feed, they go rampant, they go feral, they start feeding subconsciously on other people, or they get the insatiable urge to hurt those around them and just feed on as much life force as possible, even from those that they were like, oh, this person knows what I am, and they don't consent to it, so I'm never going to do that. Well, when you're feral, that doesn't matter. But there is a special type of despair when seeing those relics of that age from whence you came, to where you don't even go feral. You just literally, your soul, the very essence, your chakras, everything dissolves into dust, and you give up, or you drive yourself to insanity, and you just go off into the astral realm after this incarnation, and you never incarnate back on Midgard ever again because the prospect is too painful. So I've been avoiding the whole Black Pyramid thing for as long as I've been a vampire, but also as long as I've been awakened in this life. It's just something I really don't want to talk about because it'll make me angry. It'll make me very angry because you have the U.S. military that are viewing this as like some super hyper alien technology that's super advanced, and they're trying to block it off. They don't want anyone to know about it, and they're acting like it's some great fucking thing. And then everyone else is like, this is coming up with all these conspiracy theories and acting like that this is like a doomsday device, or this is the source to free power, or whatever it is. And imagine me, on the other hand, thinking about technology that is actually what you would think of that Black Pyramid, but what it actually, the feeling you get from that Black Pyramid, but towards something that I would view as like, wow, that's impressive. Something where even back in Atlantis, I would have went, wow, that is groundbreaking. That, and then just to think about the mysteries that I'll never ever experience again, and the beauty of it. And then to look at a toaster, what to you is a Black Pyramid that's 500 feet tall or whatever, and what to me is a toaster from the era whence I came. And that's not what it does. But anyways, metaphorically, just looking at a toaster and watching a bunch of monkeys, military monkeys and civilian monkeys, banging rocks and sticks together, going ooh ooh ooh, like it's the fucking obelisk from Planet of the Apes. And that just makes me feel incredibly violent. It makes me feel a type of pain I can't even begin to describe. And and then it's also sad because out of all of the things I miss, the only thing that's left is that these fucking toaster ovens, right? and not my family, not my friends. It's all gone. My people are gone. My city is gone. Everything is gone, and I'll never get it back. So it makes me just very misanthropic whenever people talk to me about the Black Pyramid, because it is not really anything that is worth protecting, worth hiding, and worth discovering. You know, it's just like, wow, have we really fallen so far to where I am now in a monkey's body, watching other monkeys marvel at things that are as basic as a kitchen utensil, and they're either worshiping it or demonizing it. And I can't help but imagine the feeling of if, you know, how do I put this? The way, and if we looked at this in reverse, the way a group of medieval villagers would look at an impala and just freak the fuck out, and you're like, that's a mid car, but what about the Bugatti? The Bugatti is more impressive, isn't it? You know, sure, the Impala, kind of cool. You know, what about, like, you know, stealth bombers? You know, what about the Horton 229? That's way cool. No, you're just focused on the Impala. No, I'd even go so far as to say that it's a Volvo. You know, it's just not even that. It's a modern day Toyota in the medieval age. It's just made out of plastic and it's garbage. And then people bringing it up, hey, Alex, I think you might know something about the pyramid. Yeah, can you shut the fuck up? Anyways, yeah, I'm never going to talk about it because it's so stupid. I don't want to think about it. It's difficult, right? It's easy. It's okay to recollect my past life. That's the video I'm working on. But it's different when there is something there from my original life, and it has to be rubbed in my face. It's like losing your entire country, your ethnicity, your city, your culture, your language, and then having them fucking rub it in your face. Don't talk to me about the fucking pyramid.